Alrighty. See if I can pull it up. All of this is going to be done in Photoshop. So I've got my mockups folder. We'll open them up. These are a series of different JPEGs. And if it decides to work, I tell you what, let's open this one like this. I'll zoom in. Each JPEG has a design on one side and a mock-up of what your poster or your banner or an area should look like. You can get these from the website. Remember, we went to the website and you saw the different styles. A lot of times they'll have people standing next to them. Why would they want to have a person standing next to a sign? Size-wise. If you didn't have this person here, how do you know that it's really tall or taller than a person? The average person's about 5.5, 6 feet tall, so this will give you an idea of the size of the banner that you're working with. What you need to do is you're going to take each design, cut it out, and we're going to paste it so that it fits nicely within the area. And I've given you some different areas. Some will be curved and have a design, some will have 2 different sides to it. All of these are just real simple, easy ways of taking a design and putting it onto an area to show to a client, hey, this is what it could look like once we do a package or once you do some sort of different design. And that's what this exercise will do. Let's start off with an easy one. I'll do this first one. I'm going to drag it into Photoshop, so get your JPEG, open in Photoshop. This must be done in Photoshop. Can't do it in Illustrator or InDesign. This is the easiest way to do it here. First thing you need to do is you need to isolate, cut out the design on the one side and paste it into its own layer. So we're going to use our marquee the easiest way. We'll make our selection. Command X to cut. Command V to paste. And now notice that my design is on one layer and my stand is on the other layer. Easy stuff. Here comes the fun part. You can move it into place, but you're also going to have to scale it and see exactly where to place things. Since it's covering up the background, what I like to do is drop the opacity of this one just a little bit, just enough to be able to see what's behind it. Now I can see where my area is. We're going to use the transform tools. Transform will allow you to scale and to rotate and to distort an image. So go to Edit, Transform, and in our case we could use Scale. We'll use some of the other ones in a little bit. Then we'll scale it down. Remember to hold down Shift because we don't want this to be skewed in any way. And we're going to scale it up till it gets right about the size. Now here's a problem that I have. Check this out. At the very bottom you can see that if I make it full size, it's not going to go all the way to the bottom. But if I go here, it's going to crop off the edge. What would you do? Obviously what I have is larger than the actual area. How would you fix this?
I'll do the white arrow. Pull it in.
No, you can't use the white arrow. Remember, this is in Photoshop. Cut it. Basically, you just need to trim off this extra edge here. So I've got it. Hit return. We'll zoom back out. Use your marquee tool again. All I'm going to do, actually I'm not going to use my marquee. I'm going to use my polygon lasso tool. I'm just going to make a selection of this edge by clicking. Double click and then delete. We'll delete it away. Bring back up my opacity. And now it's set. Looks pretty good. Okay? It's on there, it's in the area. Downside is, check out her hand. Her hand was on top of this particular area. What I need to do is not erase away, but actually use a clipping mask or a layer mask so I can see her hand inside of it. So in my layers window, create a layer mask, and remember whatever you paint black inside this area will erase away this one. Let's choose a regular brush. That'll work. Choose the color black, and now I can paint away her hand swap back over to white, and I can put it back into the way it looks. This is just a mock-up, so I'm not worrying too much about the details. Obviously, I need to even work it out there. So now this looks a little bit more believable. Okay? So that was an easy mock-up. Cut it, paste it into place. Let's do one that's a little bit more difficult. I'll close this one out. For this one, drag it into Photoshop. This one's going at a little bit of a perspective. So if I use my marquee, select the area, Command X, cut it, Command V to paste it. If I just moved it into area, it's not going to work. It's not enough to scale it down or to get it in the size. I need to actually warp it and distort it to fit this particular area. Also, I've got little round corners to contend with. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did last time. We'll start by dropping my opacity so I can at least see the area that I'm working in. This time, instead of scaling it, we're going to go to Edit, Transform. We're going to use the Distort tool. Distort will allow you to click on any of the edges and freely distort it, like this. And the computer's going to do all the work for you. So basically, I'm just going to align it up to each of the corners as best as possible, and it will automatically put it into perspective for me. Now, this will take a little bit of playing around, but you can see very quickly I've distorted it and got it right into place the way it needs to be. Hit return, lock it in, can bring back up my opacity, and now it's in perspective. I still need to round over my corners, and you can do that by using a layer mask. Any questions on using distort? Easy, easy, fun stuff. Let's try an even more difficult one. With this one, now I've got a rounded surface. It's not just enough to put it into perspective, I've actually got to make it curved to match this particular area. So let's cut it out using my marquee tool, select it, cut, paste, choose my move tool. This time I'm going to start with scaling it down just to get it to size. Then I may start off doing a distortion. So this will put it into a little bit into perspective. The final thing I need to do is to round these corners so that it matches the area. I could probably do a little bit better job. There we go. To round the corners, we're going to use a warp feature. So we'll go back to Edit, Transform, Warp is what we want. With Warp, you get this little mesh type area, and you can click on any of the edges and bring it in, and you can see now it will warp it one way or the other. This is going to give that curved edge type feel. Same way for the center. Curve it just a little bit to match that curvature. When I hit return, now the edges match the curvature of the area. And I did it probably a little more than it needed to be. You can actually look at the lines. I know it's difficult to see up there. There's little lines that you can follow that'll give you an idea of how much to curve something so that it looks all good. Any questions on this one? All right, one last one.
What if the other ones do? Perspective?
Good question. I'll tell you what, let's explore that. I'll paste out another one, and we'll just play around with this one to see what it does. So let's go to Edit, Transform. I don't use a lot of the perspective one or the skew, but it does come in handy. All skew does is makes it go one way or the other. Basically, you're just clicking on the edges and you can skew it off to the side. Perspective is fun because Edit, Transform, Perspective. It will move not just one side, but two sides at the same time. And it moves things down into perspective. The problem is it's going to stretch it out over that entire perspective. But it does come in handy. if you need to do something quickly in perspective this way. Good question. And the last one, which one did I skip over? Of course, you can flip them and rotate them. Last one that I'm using is the rotate, and all that does is just freely rotate it from there. Last one that's going to be a little bit difficult. Let's try this one. If I chose this one, you got two different images, one on the left and one on the right. They need to be on each side of the box that we're working with. So I got my marquee. We'll select it out. Cut, paste. If I scale it down, and even if I distort it into place, what problem am I still having?
White.
The white. How am I going to get rid of the white? What would you do?
Background eraser?
Nah, even simpler than that. What I would do is change your blending mode. Remember, the blending mode deals with the pixels on top of there. So which blending mode do you think gets rid of the white pixels?
White.
If I did lighten, nope, got rid of the darker pixels. I'm going to try multiply. Multiply will get rid of those lighter pixels to work on. Same way for this one. If you had to place it, this one inside of there. Copy, paste it, change your blending mode so that it blends in with the color that you're working with. Now that will come into play when you're doing something like this one. If I just did multiply on the can, I'll just do part of it. Copy, whoops, copy and paste. There we go. I'll even scale it down just a little bit so we can see it. If I changed up only the pixels on this can, watch what multiply would do for this one. Not very much. You're seeing a little bit of it. What I really want to see is the shine that's on this can. See how highlight that is? I want to be able to see that. So we'll need something a little bit different. Maybe color burn. Obviously that's getting a good bit of it. Lighten. It's not going to show everything, at least not convincingly. Overlay does a lot better job with it. So you play around with it. You tell me which blending mode you should change up in order to get it to look proper once it's on here. Another one that's going to be very tricky are these two. Oh, not that one. So the DVD case. Not only do you have the front side of it, but you also have the spine side of it. So when you cut this, you're going to have to cut this into two separate pieces. The first one's going to have to match up the front. You're going to have to cut around the CD, but also cut out the spine to match this particular area, right? Because you got to be able to wrap it around the entire thing. It's not enough to do it just one way, and they both go into perspective differently. The second one, it's going to be fun. I'm not looking for perfection on this one. But if you were to cut and scale this down to fit into here, keep in mind you also have to wrap this around the other side of the bag too. So what part of this design is going to fit into this particular area? You show me. Convince me that this design is being wrapped around this entire area right here. Sound fun? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to you.